the veil.
It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 5 o'clock in Madison, Wisconsin. And it's 7 p.m. in Philadelphia. Hello, everybody. I'm Mad Dog DeCipio. This is What's the Buzz Podcast presents Behind the Veil. Tonight, we're going to delve into the deaths of some of our beloved musical icons. Some of the people that we even today question, how did they really die? And to walk through this minefield of mischief, oh boy, did we dig a rabbit hole tonight, Mikey Messier? Is Mikey the movie maker Messier? And for the record, Mikey Messier was the very first podcast guest I ever had on this network, on What's the Buzz. It was called Wrestling with the Future back then. We still own that name, by the way, Mikey.
Still have the T-shirt.
Yeah. I got 5 left of all of them. And they were like hundreds. Oh, my God. I forget how many we ordered. Mikey, let's talk about this. Well, first of all, before we get into that, how the hell are you, kid?
I'm doing good, Angelo. It's good to be back with you. And yeah, I remember that podcast like it was last month, not 7 years ago. And it's good to be here with you. Yeah, good to be here with you.
It's been that long.
Yeah, time flies.
Jeez, that was Jeff the Ref has been going that long.
Yeah, Jeff the Ref, rest in peace. I believe it was February 29th, 2020 that Jeff passed away.
Yeah, on a leap. Go figure. He had to be different, right? He had to pass on a leap year, right?
Right. And
crazy.
So it's good to be here, and it's good to be talking about music and some of our lost icons. And
yeah,
I did.
I'll tell you what, it's great to have you here, Mikey. You know, I recently lost a friend and a co-host. We're not going to give that any more than that tonight. But I will tell you that I couldn't think of anyone better to replace both of those people than the one Mikey Messier, because you are a wealth of knowledge on both professional wrestling and pop culture and film and television. And we're going to talk about all of that. And I know you got a bit of a conspiratorial mindset, and we'll talk about that stuff too. And tonight, we'll probably talk about all of the above.
Right.
Because we're going to delve into to some of our most treasured musical icons. How did they die? Did they really pass in the manner that people said they did? So let's someone bring us up here. So look at who we're really talking about. Some of these people, you see Sam Cooke and Janis Joplin, Jeff Buckley, Prince, Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison, and of course Tupac Shakur.
Right.
And of course, AI did a fairly decent job of recreating these individuals. Let's talk a little bit about what we think we know, Mikey, and what we actually know. One of the things, and it started with the woman and her husband killed him.
Right.
That was the other story. Then there is the more salacious story that's actually got some traction to it, is that Sam Cooke died from bad heroin. That they and that he was known, as a clean recording artist, but he did have his demons, and his demon, and like it was for so many musicians, was heroin, or his particular drug of choice. What do you know, Mikey, about the death of Sam Cooke? What do you know about the history of this guy?
I don't know much about his death. I do know the music. A lot of the songs you just said have been used in motion pictures, in the 90s and 2000s up until today. A lot of times, the baby boomer generation is very nostalgic for the Motown sound. So Sam's music would be used in, say a Julia Roberts movie as a flashback sequence type of thing. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, as far as heroin goes, it's a deadly drug. It's a horrible drug, addictive. And I think what's interesting is that even from generations ago until now, these stories continue of musicians and drug use. But tell me more about Sam Cooke.
Well, here's what we think we know. Here's the official narrative. The Sam Cooke was shot and killed on December 11th, 1964. That is solid. That is what's known factually. He was 33 when he died. Here's where it gets a little sketchy. This is where innuendo and propaganda and other kinds of nefarious things come in. He was said to have been shot by Bertha Franklin, who was the manager of the Hacienda Hotel in Los Angeles. Franklin claimed self-defense after, if you can believe it. Now, keep in mind that Bertha Franklin is a 66-year-old woman, a black woman, that's manager of the Hacienda Hotel, which was frequented by African Americans at the time in L.A. And they got special rates, and they were able to stay there where they couldn't stay in the so-called white hotels.
Right.
Remember, we're talking about the turbulent 60s here, and racism and racial divide was preeminent in the country. Here's where it gets sketchy, though. She says that she killed Sam Cooke in self-defense after he attempted to rape her. Now, I want you to think about what we're talking about. He is literally to the year half the age that she is. He's
Right.
33, she's 66. What on earth would even prompt or propel a good-looking, handsome recording artist who had women with him at the time of his passing? Where would that idea come from that he tried to rape me? He attempted to force himself upon me, Franklin said to the police department, following, quote, Cooke's aggressive behavior and alleged fondling, quote, alleged fondling of her person. This is all quotes. It's on the police report. You can't make this shit up. I tell people the truth. I swear to you guys, the truth is far more ridiculous, in some cases, far more nefarious than anything you can make up.
Right.
Okay. Again, here you go. There's another one. Cooke was shot by a jealous lover, the husband of a woman he was having an affair with. All right, that was another one. Here's another one. Another attempted rape of a young woman named Elsa Boyer at the same motel. And allegedly, the same woman we spoke of before, Bertha Franklin, shot Cooke in defense of Erica Boyer. Well, now, which is it, Miss Franklin?
Right.
Did he force himself on you, or was he attempting to force himself on Miss Elisa Boyer? And quote, the attempted rape of a young woman, unquote, named Elisa Boyer at the same motel. Well, which is it? See, this is where history meets mystery.
Yeah.
The story of Sam Cooke has to this day, Mikey, never been truly satisfied, not by the elder. By the way, just so you know, his death is still an open and investigation even today because murder has no statute of limitations. Here's what they say: the death was officially ruled justifiable homicide, but Cook's family attorney, and supporters have long questioned that account, citing inconsistencies, missing cash and personal items from Cook, Boyer's questionable background, and the possibility of a quote setup or robbery gone wrong unquote involving the motel staff spearheaded by Miss Bertha Franklin unquote. You can't make this shit up. It's from the official police report. The Los Angeles Police Department, by the way, folks, if you're interested, you can get a copy of what I have right here. They'll gladly give it to you as they gave it to me. And that's where I got this info, Mikey. This came right from the LA County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, the word setup came to mind as you were discussing all that because it seems like the Bertha Fay lady, I'm just speculating. I'm sure other people have speculated the same thing that she was somehow on the take as a either she was coerced or forced or bribed to witness the death of this gentleman, or to say that she saw it and maybe she didn't even see it. But when you throw in the rape allegations, that's obviously a way to smear a guy's reputation, and he's no longer there to defend himself. And this took place in the 1960s. Is that right, Angelo?
1964, Mikey.
So
in fact, December the 11th, 1964.
Yeah, there's no internet. There's no sleuths at home doing research. There's no unsolved mysteries to come on the site and file a report. So definitely it's a situation where the police, their official word is going to stand pretty much undisputed. So people can have their disputes and their concerns. The family, obviously, of Sam are going to dispute this story, but there's really not much that can be done, apparently.
Interesting that you say that, because, and I want to ask you a question. Remember something here. And this is the uniqueness of the Sam Cooke death investigation. Here's the unique part. Everyone we're talking about here is African American.
Right.
How much do you think that played a role in I'm going to be careful how I say this, in how much attention was given to Sam Cooke's death investigation from the police? Do you think they saw, well, this is, a black matter.
Right.
We're not going to get our hands dirty. You remember, racial overtones were like really heavy. In 1964, look at what happened. You had John F. Kennedy die just the year before,
right,
in 63. Lyndon Johnson is now the president. He signs the Civil Rights Bill of 1964, which not a lot of people were happy about. It gave African Americans pretty much full rights, full citizenship rights, and it really did. Do you think that Sam Cooke's death, Mikey, may have been kind of side swiped or ushered under the rug as a way of just kind of not having to deal with it?
Yeah, what comes to my mind, Angelo, is one of two extremes, which is the way that humans often think is in extremes. But it seems like either the police were behind it, like the police might have manipulated the scene, or like you're saying here, they could have had less of an interest in solving the case, chalking it up to, well, that's a black situation, and he probably deserved it because he was probably aggressive towards this woman. Or so I can see it going one of two ways. Either the police, were on the take from somebody and manipulated the situation, similar in theory to like a JFK conspiracy, or
Yeah.
they like you were saying. Also, the other choice would be hands off. This is a black thing. We're not getting involved. We're not going to worry about it. We have Sally and Mrs. White in the suburbs to protect. Let's get
Yeah.
back to work.
Right. And you know what? I'm more inclined, and I thought about this a long time because this is not the first time I've covered this.
Yeah.
And on another program where I was asked to give my opinions on this, I really, to be honest with you, I didn't really deviate too much from what you said.
Right.
But having you say that and me hearing it, I think to myself, even now, I wonder how much the police were complicit in kind of like either, because you remember Sam Cooke was an outspoken guy on social issues
Right.
and wasn't shy about it. And I'm wondering, was there complicit by the police or was because it seems to me, Mikey, and this is just where my head goes, it seems to me like the centerpiece of the Sam Cooke story, if you want to call it that, the centerpiece to me is Bertha Franklin, the hotel manager.
Right.
She seems to be like the ground zero of this case because she brings forth an allegation. Then she's so-called defending a woman who brings an allegation. So how much time did Sam Cooke really have? Let's be honest about it. How much time did Sam Cooke really have to rape anybody? There were people around.
Well, that would go to my point about saying the police, and these are just allegations on my part, but the police could have orchestrated this situation, and they could have had something to blackmail Bertha Faye, or just their authority figure as police officers, like, hey, Bertha, we know you have a family that we could contact if we wanted to, but they could have manipulated this woman, this 66-year-old woman, to testify to things that she had no interest in saying, but they could have been twisting her arm metaphorically or even literally to say things. And let's not be naive and think that, and I'm a supporter of the United States police system, but there are always bad situations within it. And let's not be naive to think that our good old USA hasn't had situations where our authority figures manipulate and deceive and control and all those horrible things that we'd like to think they don't do, but occasionally they do. So I'm saying that, in my opinion, I don't know if it's Bertha Faye. Just hearing the story from you tonight, I don't know if she was equipped or interested in filing false charges against Sam Cooke, unless
oh boy, did you say something? Oh my God! Oh man, did you say something that I had not thought about? Whether they were interested or not, that's a whole nother question. Whether they were interested in doing anything with this case. Remember something. They ruled his death officially justifiable homicide.
Right.
But nobody ever proved that he did anything. And I want people to understand something. Because they make an official ruling does not mean that the case is closed. It is officially right now in the LA County Sheriff's Office. The death of Sam Cooke is what's called a cold case. In other words, they made an official ruling, but the case is still open pending further evidence.
Right.
Because they weren't, I guess somebody, and I'll give them credit, whoever they are, this nameless police officer, somebody in the police department there must have felt like there was some shred of doubt that they kept this a cold case rather than what they say, closing the books on it, which I can tell you it is absolutely a wide open case.
Yeah.
Mikey, Jim Morrison, a name we've heard a lot about in the annals of music. Talk to me about Jim Morrison, brother.
Well, I'm a big fan of Jim Morrison, and I probably became, my mom actually, when I was in utero, was listening to Jim Morrison LPs, and some of his poetry and his rock and roll lyrics were great. The Lizard King and Roadhouse, of course, is a great song, and the American Prayer album is probably my favorite album of him and the
Love it.
Doors. And Jim, um, it's an artist that if you listen to his music, especially in your early 20s, uh, for several generations, people have discovered the Doors and discovered Jim Morrison. You're listening to this guy, and like other great lyricists, you feel like you know this guy, or you feel like he knows you. And his death, I believe he died in Paris, and there was some search situations. I believe he had committed at a concert indecent exposure of his genitals to the crowd, and was potentially facing jail time. And he went off to Paris and was going to have to come back to the States eventually to perhaps go to jail. And but he never made it back to the USA because he passed away. I believe it's in Paris, France, right? So
He did. In fact, he passed away July 3rd, 1971, which is exactly 55 years 3 days ago.
right,
So we celebrated the posthumously the passing of Jim Morrison. Interesting guy, the Lizard King. Do you
yeah.
happen to know where he got that name from?
Well, I know that he wrote a poem called "The Lizard King," and I believe he was putting an homage to his own manhood. I believe that's what it was. Am I correct in that?
You
That the
are.
lizard, he
You
was
are.
as a
That
little
is
footnote.
absolutely true, Mikey.
I was born in the same town, Arlington, Virginia, as Jim Morrison, and our birth dates are 3 days apart. He was born on December 8th. I was born on December 5th.
Yes. I have that written down on my calendar too, Mikey Messier's birthday.
Yeah,
Because I believe it coincides with the Beatles release of what was it, the White Album?
sounds about right. Well, John Lennon was assassinated on December 7th, and then
Right.
so a lot of things happened. Pearl Harbor Day, obviously, December 7th.
Yeah. You're right in the middle of it too, Messier.
All the fun. I've heard a very interesting theory. I might blindside you with this one, Angelo, because the video on YouTube is now gone. But there was several videos several years ago about celebrity repackages and or repackaging, and these were conspiracies saying that Bill Hicks and I believe was it
Alex
Bill
Jones.
Alex Jones was the big one, which
Yeah.
is that there would be a celebrity who kind of passed away or disappeared, and then a couple of years later, another celebrity would come along, and then these self-made journalists on YouTube would put the pieces together and compare teeth and compare facial structures. The Bill Hicks, Alex Jones, and I know Angelo was a big part of that too.
I'm
Uh,
a huge part of it. I'm one of the instigators. I got news.
yeah, and so a big
I'll admit it. I will absolutely admit it.
right, and one that caught my attention was that, and they had the photographs and the dental and everything, was that Jim Morrison disappeared, and he died, and when he passed away, he was very bloated, very overweight for him, and the
True.
the old Jim Morrison, the soon to be apparently deceased or supposedly deceased Jim Morrison, looks very similar, believe it or not, to a young Rush Limbaugh. And they took the pictures of Jim in his final days,
Yeah.
and the shape of his head and the shape of his face and his teeth compared to a Rush Limbaugh, and I don't believe that was Rush's actual name. And
No, it
the
wasn't.
right, so the conspiracy theory goes something like, because Jim had this indecent act of exposure on his record and he possibly was going to go to jail, he basically had to submit to being repackaged as a conservative right wing Rush Limbaugh radio guy, and
Yeah.
it's so bizarre because if you're a fan of the,
Well,
you
when
know,
Mikey, I'm going to tell you something, brother. When I tell you what I'm about to tell you, you might be able to put some pieces together. But continue.
well, if you take if on the surface, if you were to say, hey, the Doors movie by Oliver Stone with the actor who played Jim Morrison, Val Kilmer,
Val
and
Kilmer, yeah.
and then you look at the plotting and kind of the plump Barney Rubble shaped Rush Limbaugh, you would never put these two together. But the video that I saw years ago on YouTube really did a great job of making you think about it. And like I said, that video is gone. I can't find it anymore. So
If you really want to prove or disprove the plausibility, I'm not going to. I'm not going to say prove or disprove whether it's Morrison or not, but I'll say prove or disprove the plausibility. Take Rush Limbaugh's picture when he was of that age and do an overlay. It will blow your mind. It will do an overlay of Jim Morrison at the time of his alleged passing, which was 27, and then look at Rush Limbaugh at around 27 to 30 years of age. You'll go, what the fuck what happened here? You will. Let me tell you this. Doors frontman Jim Morrison was found dead in a bathtub in his Paris apartment on July 3rd, 1971, at the age of 27. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure, with no autopsy performed, as it was not required under French law at the time. That's going to come into play here in a minute. His girlfriend, Pamela Corson, reported finding him unconscious after a night involving possible heroin use, which Morrison reportedly disliked. And again, here's a guy who allegedly died from heroin, but he didn't like needles. Okay? Though accounts vary and some friends denied his heavy drug use or drug involvement, in fact, the lack of toxicity, a sealed coffin, conflicting stories, and continued speculation of a faked death fueled theories ranging from everything from an overdose to identity to switching identity. Okay, now let me tell you why what I said previously about things maybe putting the pieces together. We're actually doing a show in about a month where we're going to do celebrities who have, for lack of a better term, gone undercover to gather and gain information for the government. Elvis Presley was one of them.
Right.
Morgan Freeman is another, and he's still around. Jim Morrison was yet another. We found out through the Freedom of Information Act. The Lizard King was a name given to Jim Morrison from his father, who was the head of Operation Lizard King. What was Operation Lizard King? Operation Lizard King was an infiltration attempt to assassinate Fidel Castro, pre-Kennedy assassination. We're talking 1961-62, when Castro was really gaining a foothold in Cuba. And here comes this young American president named Kennedy who wants to double down on it. Well, the way he went about doubling down on it may have been part and parcel as to what got his head blown off. On that, among other things, that he was making. John F. Kennedy wasn't making a lot of friends. Let's put it that way, Mikey.
Right.
But Jim Morrison's father, who was a high-ranking colonel, did have some stroke, and he had a considerable amount of Pentagon buddies. We'll say that he had a lot of friends in the Pentagon. Let's put it that way. They came to him. So the story in the paperwork reads is that Morrison's father says to his son Jim, "Son, I need you to help your country. Here's how I want you to help your country. You just do this, and dear old dad will take care of everything for you."
Right.
Okay. So his girlfriend, Pamela Corson, the name we just mentioned, she was a CIA asset. That's documented. We know that now for certain. We also believe with 99% certainty that so too was Jim Morrison himself, a CIA asset. We know that he gathered information not only on government officials, gathered dossiers on criminal elements, and returned them to his father. He gathered information, we know this, on the Beatles, on Elvis Presley. He gathered information on, believe it or not, you can't make this shit up, the Dave Clark Five, another British group. I don't know what they were into, but apparently somebody wanted whatever they had.
Right.
And so the information he gathered was very broad, Mikey, very wide ranging. Everything from gathering info on Castro, infiltrating different bands, having his kind of like having his fingers everywhere. Hence the Lizard King, because lizards are quick and they can camouflage themselves.
Right.
Lizards very much like chameleons. They have the ability to change their skin color with their environment, which is it's a funky to go on YouTube and watch like a National Geo of like a lizard and chameleon switching colors. It's crazy.
Mm.
So here we go. The idea of the faked death is something that has not ever gone away. And it's something that, if you believe it, has lended credence to Tupac Shakur, Elvis Presley, Jim Morrison, and any number of quote unquote celebrities who have quote died under mysterious or nefarious circumstances. You mentioned something, Mikey, earlier. Repackaging.
Right.
Okay. Did you ever see the movie Home Alone?
Yeah, with Macaulay Culkin. Yep.
Okay. Remember the scene where the late Catherine O'Hara, God rest her soul, is at the airport and she's in line and there's a guy behind her, tall fella,
I
with a
don't
turtleneck,
Okay.
wearing a turtleneck. There are people who believe that's Elvis Presley.
Interesting.
Oh, go watch it. Go watch it again.
I will.
Yeah. In fact, I might be able to bring it up for you during our commercial. Crazy stuff, brother. It's crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of which, as far as the repackaging goes, I remember in real time, Angela, when Kurt Cobain of Nirvana passed away back in 1994.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, Angelo, at the time, it's kind of a hard story to fully explain quickly, but I was under the belief, just came up with this stuff on my own. There was no internet that I was reading, that Kurt had basically changed bands to Weezer, and there was a guy in the band Weezer was brand new, just as the fallout of Kurt Cobain's death happened, and Weezer was going on tour opening for Hole, which was Courtney Love's band. Courtney Love
Yeah.
was the widow of Kurt Cobain, and I had this whole theory, just basically came up with it myself, that the Kurt Cobain death was a staged situation. He wasn't really dead. He just got sick of being Kurt Cobain, and he repositioned himself in this new band Weezer, and he wanted to switch things up. And so I just had this thought on my own, and then basically 3 or 4 years ago, I put on the good old YouTube, and there's videos, explaining exactly what I was thinking at the time as a young guy, that, the Sweater song, the Weezer's first big hit was the Sweater song, Do You Want to Destroy My Sweater? And Kurt Cobain was known for wearing these cardigan sweaters. And
Oh yeah,
concert.
absolutely. Kind of a trademark with him.
Yeah, and it's a thing where I've said about these repackaging videos and these conspiracies, if they're not all true, and I'm sure some of them are not, but if not, at least I give credit to the conspiracy video creators that they are highly intelligent, highly imaginative. They put a lot of work into the research for this stuff.
Yeah.
The dental records. If nothing else, it's entertaining theories.
I will tell you this, and we have to, we must never lose sight of this. In any rumor, in any speculation, in any curiosity seeker's mind or wisdom, there is, and there must be, elements of truth. Our job as the conspiracy kook is to try to A, dissect it, B, make sense of it, and C, try to prove the point we're trying to make. I will attempt to do that right now with you, Mikey. Take a look at this.
All right. Oh,
on the left is Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
On the right is unknown actor, and that's how he's built, unknown actor. Okay. If you look at Elvis, especially in the last concert he ever did,
right,
where he was heavy set. Now remember, this is 1981. Elvis passes in 1977, allegedly. Okay.
Home Alone came out in 91, I think. 90 or 91. Home Alone.
Did it?
Yeah, it was from the early 90s, not the early 80s.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, let me see. I got to check that one out.
I remember distinctly.
When did Home Alone come out?
It had to be 1990 or 91.
It was 1990.
Yep.
Okay, so they gave the wrong date. All right, so they gave the wrong date. They're saying 1981. So that's clearly wrong. So we can kibosh that one. But it is compelling nonetheless that if you look at this guy,
right,
he does the facial structures there, the hairline is there. He just kind of looks, makes you think about it anyway, for sure.
Well, there was a novel that came out in the late 80s. I believe it was called Is Elvis Alive or Is Elvis Still Alive? And the woman went on national television.
I had her on my show, Mikey, Gail Brewer Giorgio.
Yeah. So,
I had her on here.
Yeah. So,
I want to tell you something funny about that. It's because first of all, she was paid a ton of money to make this shit up.
Okay.
To the point, and I'll tell you who paid her. The late Shelby Singleton, a music producer, legendary music producer in Nashville. Shelby Singleton paid this woman an ungodly amount of money to write this book about a so-called superstar who fakes his death and comes back as a masked singer named Orion.
Right.
To the point where they actually had a talent search for an Elvis sound-alike. And they found one not far from Tennessee, in fact, in Atlanta, Georgia, a guy named Jimmy Ellis. Jimmy Orion Ellis became Orion with the mask and everything. people didn't know this, but Jimmy Ellis made his first television appearance in 1968 on the Grand Ole Opry, doing an Elvis song.
Right, right,
But they said, you'll never make it. You sound too much like Elvis. And his career stalled at that moment.
right.
1978 comes along, 77, 78 comes along, and all of a sudden, oh, Jimmy Ellis is reborn. And that was the name of his first album, Reborn. And you can still buy it.
Yeah,
Go on Spotify. You can listen to the whole album.
right.
Jimmy Ellis, Reborn. Okay, well, here's the thing. When the marketing machine gets behind something that's got a little bit of legs, they grow big old legs and they run with that mother. They run fast and they run hard because along the way, there's a bank here, take the money. There's a bank here, take the money.
Right, right.
You get where we're going. They were making bank, brother. And then the jig was up. Somebody opened their mouth and said, no, I'm the guy who did the voice on that Elvis tape. And he proved it.
Right.
Okay. They found a guy, an impersonator, a voiceover guy that did such a great Elvis speaking. He couldn't sing like Elvis, but he could speak like Elvis.
Right.
Okay. His name was Raoul Donner. Okay. And a lot of people, you have to be of a certain age to know who Raoul Donner was. Rest in peace. I know his son. Raoul Donner was dead on Elvis sound-alike when he spoke. When he sang, yeah, you could hear a little Elvis-y sound. But yeah. But the idea with Morrison has gained traction, Mikey, because there was a sealed casket.
Mm.
There was no autopsy done. Morrison, by his own admission, liked booze. He
Right.
liked beer. He liked wine. He liked whiskey. He was a drinker. He came from a long line of drinkers. Okay. Some sloppy drinkers, quite frankly. His mother and father, the Colonel, was a drinker. So I have issues with, okay, well, how do we prove? Can't prove he's alive necessarily, but how do we prove that he even died?
Yeah.
How do you prove somebody's death? Hard to do. When there's no body, the guy hated needles, but yet you're going to say he died from a heroin overdose.
Right.
And yet there's no sign that he was even interested in heroin, like ever. When you saw Morrison and he was whacked out,
Yeah.
he was drunk. Wasn't high. He was drunk. He very rarely, quote, got high. Yeah, everybody smoked a little grass back then.
Yeah.
You know, now you could buy grass in your local dispensary because it's legal where I live.
Right.
You know, you go out and buy what you want. Here's the thing, Mike. I got to have your input on this because
Sure.
this is something that we can do an entire show just on Jim Morrison. In fact, we're going to do an entire show on Kurt Cobain.
Good.
I have one of the investigating officers are going to be on that show.
Nice.
So much he believes so much that this was a setup that he quit his job with the Seattle Police Department
Wow.
to take on this cause and wrote 2 books, not one, 2 books about the Cobain death. What we know, what we think we know. And Weezer puts a big question mark on it at this point.
Yeah, the Weezer.
Yeah, go ahead, Mikey.
Well, yeah, just like I said, the Weezer thing was something that occurred to me in real time when I was a young Kurt Cobain fan, and then 30 years later, I find out that I'm not alone in this theory or this speculation. The suicide note of Kurt Cobain with the two different signature styles, addressing Jim Morrison, and a lot of it is, and I'll say this, Angelo, a lot of some people might be wondering, well, why does it matter? Why do people care? It's these rock and roll people. A lot of times, in my opinion, the masses live vicariously through them. There's a lot of the term rock star. I mean, there's something to it where
Yeah.
people, that power, the sexuality, the being some would say a Christ figure, like Jim Morrison was seen as a Christ figure in the Oliver Stone film. But people having that ability, I'm going to sing a song, and 20,000 people are going to reach into their pocket and pull out. In the old days, it would be a cigarette lighter. Today, it would be a smartphone flashlight.
Yeah.
But the ability, why do people care? It's because there's that. I guess I call it a power. A power element, a shaman element. I think there's other cases. We could go down a whole hip hop history of Aaliyah, who I believe passed away in a helicopter accident, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
you mentioned Tupac, and of course Biggie and Tupac dying within months of each other of a hip hop feud, East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah.
There's the 27 Club, which I know you've talked about before, Angelo. Just so many mysterious deaths of these performers, and it's fascinating, really.
Here's the interesting thing about this. Whenever a high profile celebrity passes, the first thing, because you can't gain immediate information. Police always, it seems, they have that info first.
Right.
But once the proverbial dust settles and you're able to gain access, the first people that you want to talk to are the people who knew him the best: his family, his friends, people that hung out with him on a daily basis. And here's the interesting thing here. Though accounts vary, his friends denied heavy drug involvement, the lack of toxicity, a sealed casket, and conflicting stories have fueled theories ranging from an overdose or conspiracy to even a faked death. This is 1971 we're talking about.
Right.
Okay? We're only a few years removed from Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, all of these people, Jeff Buckley, all of these people dying from apparently the same kind of death. This seems to be like, and I'm going to make this, I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to make a statement.
Sure.
Because somebody's going to call me out on this, Mikey, I assure you. It seems to me that 68, 69, 70, 71, if you were a rock star, didn't matter who you were, from 68 to 71, it didn't matter who the hell you were. You were a heroin addict. That was the big drug, purportedly, heroin. Right. From 68 to, they all apparently overdosed from heroin. Even though we're going to find out that we have established that Morrison hated needles.
Right.
His family said that. His girlfriend said that. Keeping in mind that his girlfriend was a CIA asset, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, when you put together that, the way I understand what you're saying, Angelo, is that whether they actually were heroin addicts or not, that was the official story that was being released.
Yeah, and you're going to hear that one a couple of times here, Mikey. Let's talk about Tupac.
Okay.
Here's an interesting case, Mikey, because I will tell you that I have one of Tupac's friends on the show.
Okay.
And I showed him a video that was forwarded to me. And I showed this, and I want to tell you something, brother. This guy looked like he saw a ghost. This guy turned ash.
Right.
And he's an African American guy. And he got gray when he saw this video. He said, "That's Pac. That's Pac." So I shut it off because he was getting emotional.
Wow.
And I will tell you that if there's anyone, and I know two people right now that are dead ringers for Tupac Shakur, that if they went up to Mike Messier right now, could convince you that they were Tupac.
Right.
Okay, that's how good they are. Tupac Shakur was allegedly fatally shot in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, September 7th, 1996, after attending a Mike Tyson fight. He died 6 days later in the hospital at the age of, now here's another thing, at the age of 25/27. Depends on what birth date you want to believe.
Right.
Because they give him the age of 25 at his passing and 27 at his passing, to the point where if you look at the 27 club, he's on it. Okay. I happen to believe that based on the information that I was able to gather, that he was more close to 25 or 26 than 27. I think he wasn't. I don't believe he was 27.
Right.
So, but him being on the 27 club, I don't know about all that. Here's the thing, and this is where things get sketchy with Tupac. The attack has been widely linked to the East Coast, West Coast, as you said previously, the rap rivalry and gang affiliations with said rivalries with Orlando Anderson, a Crip, a member of the Crip gang. The Crips and the Bloods,
Right,
have had a long, long history, and they are national clubs. They're in pretty much everywhere you can go. There's a Crips and a Blood chapter somewhere. They have been long suspected. A suspect was arrested decades later. Persistent conspiracy theories claim involvement by Suge Knight, by Sean P. Diddy Combs, and others who had, quote, deeply seated financial and rival motives, unquote, or that Tupac, here you go, Mike, you're going to hear it again, Tupac faked his death inspired by his, quote, Machiavelli alias,
right,
and is still alive, fueled by posthumous releases and alleged sightings. Now, I will tell you, and again, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to give a shit. Because this is behind the veil where mystery becomes history. If you were to say to me, Angelo, you believe that Tupac Shakur is dead? No, I do not. I don't believe he's dead. I can give you probably 30 or 40 good reasons, legit, for why I don't believe he's dead. But I can give you one reason that I know he's not, and that is the absolute wealth of money he made for both East Coast and West Coast. The money that man generated through his music, and I'm going to tell you something, Mikey. You're a film guy.
right.
Tupac was a hell of an actor, man.
Oh yeah,
He was a hell of an actor, and he had a working knowledge of the film business. He knew how to run a camera. He was heavily involved with editing. The guy was a real talent. and not just a musical talent. He was a multifaceted talent.
Right.
I can give you, like I said, 30 or 40 reasons why I think he's still alive, but I'll give you one. The money. Follow the money. What are your thoughts on this? Because I mean, this is just the top of it. There's
Yeah,
more to go here.
I'd love to see that video that you showed the friend of Tupac's. I'd love to see
Yeah,
that.
I will send it to you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I was a Tupac fan, and I mean, he was a guy that was in the middle of all these controversies. He had been to jail at least once or twice. Um, he was a lightning rod. I mean, he was
Yeah,
everywhere he went. It seemed like, especially in his final several months of living, he would just go and record tons and tons of lyrics, almost as a premonition that he wouldn't be able to do that in the near future through death or through whatever.
yeah,
Is I guess the real question for me, and you say that he's alive because of the money, follow the money. He's even in death, he's still generating money. I remember 10 or 12 years ago, Angelo, there was a graphic or a hologram of Tupac that they put on stage, and people
yeah,
reacted very mixed to that because some people found it offensive or even scary or even satanic that they would have something that looks so close to reality.
yeah.
Uh, my I guess my question to you is, why would Tupac be able to generate more money dead than if he were still alive and just walking around being a living Tupac who went from 25, 26 to now? He would be about 53 or 54 at this point, where he with if he is with us, he would be that age. Why do you think he would be better? Why would he agree to go underground, so to speak, or undercover in the guise of death rather than just living the life of an aging artist?
I'll give you a very sound answer to that. An incredibly poignant question. Simple. He still has the ability to make music. You got to think about something. When you record music in a studio and for a label, there are certain numbers of releases that the studio and record company will keep just for the occasion when you pass. Again, I'm going to use Elvis Presley as an example.
Right.
When Elvis died, so-called death, when he died, right? They released more music after his death than they ever did during his lifetime, because they had stockpiles of every time he recorded an album of 12 songs, he may have recorded 30 or 40 songs that day or during that 3 or 4 day studio time.
Right.
Okay. 12 of them were going to go on an album. 10 to 12 is the average, right, Mikey?
Yes. Right? Yes. Yeah.
The rest of them go in the RCA vault.
Right.
Here's the problem with Tupac. He didn't record that much music that they could store in the vaults. But yet, there's more Tupac Shakur music now being released that's not AI. And I want to make sure we understand this. That's not AI. Because you can clearly tell the difference between AI and Tupac.
Right.
Just like you can with AI and Elvis, or AI and Sinatra. Because that's another big one, Frank Sinatra. Okay? I don't believe he's dead for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's generating money. Number two, he's not that old. He's probably, like you said, maybe 53 to 55, maybe around that age.
Yes. Yeah.
Depending on whether you believe he was 25 or 27 when he passed. Right. So he's 53 to 55, somewhere around here. If he's alive, as I believe he is, and as I have shown his friend, and he believes, he says that's Pac. He said it on this show. That's Pac. Here's a guy that knows him. Okay? Past, present. Yeah, I mean, you have to say, it is, was, uh, now that, yeah, it's crazy. You got to go back and forth with this. It really is kind of bizarre
Yeah.
but we have to have this conversation because there are people who believe that the music he's recording is the best he's ever done.
Right.
You can sound like anybody if you want to sound like somebody, an impersonator. But there are key elements, Mikey. You know this being in film. There are certain things you can do with editing, and there are certain things that you just have to be human to pull off.
Right.
Okay? Everybody's voice has a pattern, it's got a cadence. There's a certain ambiance to someone's voice. Okay? Some things you can't fake. There are some things you can't fake. You can get close, but technology and the human ear are always going to dime you out.
Right.
That's why I think again, he recorded under the name Machiavelli even while he was Tupac. This
Well,
is factual.
yeah. No, I had the Machiavelli album, the first one, the 7 Day
Yeah.
Theory. So I mean, it would lend itself. Leon Barfield, one of our watchers, has some interesting opinions here,
Oh, yeah.
Angelo.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Two,
wait till we do the Charlie Kirk show. I got news for you, brother. Oh,
yeah,
Tupac and many others are alive and are in the. Yes. And I'm going to tell you something. There's heavy evidence to support what Leon says, particularly with Tupac, because he was about to name names when he so-called died. You remember something too. There's something a lot of people didn't catch. His friend caught this. Check this out. At the Mike Tyson fight, he goes in with Suge Knight. Okay, him and Suge.
right,
They go in. They're dressed a certain way. Okay?
yeah,
When they come out, Suge is still dressed the same way. Tupac's not. He's got different clothes on. He's got way different clothes on. It's like, well, where did he change? The fight just got out. There's a rush of people
right,
leaving the casino showroom where the fight was, right?
yes.
Where did he change? What did he change walking? Where did he change? Why are the clothes different coming out than when he went in? And
Right.
I'm not saying that. His friend says that. He
So
had
that would-
different clothes on.
So that would lend itself to the theory that perhaps it was a different guy. If it was different clothes, was it a stand-in, a look-alike, something like that?
Well, and I just said to you about 10 minutes ago, I know two guys that are the dead ringers from like splitting images. Okay.
Yeah,
Charlie Kirk is alive. We're going to do that show. I got some info on Charlie Kirk that I wasn't ready to share tonight, and I'm not going to, but we will do the Charlie Kirk show. And it's
Yeah.
going to be about a 4 or 5 parter.
wow,
Here's one for you, Mikey.
sure.
What do you know about Jeff Buckley?
I know about the father. It was the father and son, and they both passed away young. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the son, there was actually a documentary film, Angelo. It wasn't, I think it was last summer of 2025, that I went to the movie theater and I watched this documentary about the son and his short-lived, phenomenal but short-lived career, because he died at such a young age. So
Yeah. Yep.
they didn't dwell on any conspiracy theories about the son's death, except that he was gone too soon once again.
Let me tell everybody a little bit about Jeff Buckley. Jeff Buckley died at the age of 30 on May 29th, 1977, in what was reported as an accidental drowning in the Wolf River Harbor, and a tributary to the Mississippi. In other words, like an artery
Right.
of the Mississippi River. near Memphis, Tennessee. While fully clothed and singing along to music, allegedly, he waded into the water and was pulled under by the wake of a passing boat. His body was found 3 days later. An autopsy found only a minimal amount of alcohol in his system. No drugs were found in his system. Foul play and suicide were ruled out. It was ruled an accidental drowning despite the fact that zero water was in his lungs. Zero. His death came just as he was preparing, listen to this one, preparing to record a second album after the success of his first album called Grace. Now, couple of things about Jeff Buckley. All right. First of all, people that took this information, and kudos to them, they were very accurate in their description. However, they forgot to mention one thing. There was a witness with Jeff Buckley. He was with somebody. Okay? The person he was with says that he went into the water, but he didn't have clothes on. He took his clothes off and went in basically in his underwear, his shorts.
Right.
He went in. He was a hell of a swimmer. It was said his mother said he was a great swimmer, which shocked her that he drowned in this. With how do you drown with no water in you? But please, that's not true. That's something else is going on here.
Right.
Okay. This is perplexing on so many different levels, Mikey, because he's a guy, and we got to remember what kind of guy he was. Jeff Buckley was a young guy, 30 years old. He was an outspoken proponent of a lot of social causes.
Yeah.
Okay. A big supporter of LGBTQ, the transgenders, lesbians, gays, the gay community in general. Okay.
Sure.
He was an avid proponent of the an avid opponent of the so-called chemtrail program.
Okay.
That people talked about.
Right.
Spraying the skies. The other thing that he was a supporter of is the legalization of certain non-narcotic drugs. He was in support of legalized marijuana. He was in support of certain legalized, what we would call controlled substances. I don't know if I would support this kind of movement, but there are people who would, cocaine. They wanted to, decriminalize cocaine. To me, coke is bad. I don't care who you are. Coke is a bad. It does too much damage.
Right.
And it's not something that I want to fuck around with. I did when I was younger. And I got it out of my system, and it's done. That was a long time ago. But it will do some damage while you're doing it.
Sure.
Here's the thing, though. An autopsy was performed and found only a small amount of alcohol. And his friend that was with him says, yeah, they were drinking some beer. They had a couple of beers.
Right.
Okay. Not enough to one beer is going to impair you to you're incoherent. You don't know where you are. Sure. You don't know that you're in the Mississippi River swimming.
Right.
I don't buy that, Mikey. There's something. The death of Jeff Buckley has always been kind of a sticking point because you remember something. He's one of the first people to record. In fact, he was the first person to record Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah.
Right.
That everybody and his brother now covers. Okay. um, and did an amazing job of it. If you ever listen to Jeff Buckley's version, even Leonard Cohen said that that was the best version he ever heard
There's a
up until his passing. Go ahead, Mikey.
Yeah, there's a theme with just over the discussion of the last hour or so is a theme that some of these musicians were transcendent figures, meaning that their thoughts, they weren't just writing, silly little love songs, so to speak. They were writing lyrics, or they had thoughts or quotes outside of their song lyrics that were somewhat social commentaries or politically based. So it's like, why are some of these deaths an issue? It's because the thinking that I'm getting, the subtext is, if an artist speaks too loudly, speaks too much, says the wrong things, upsets the wrong people, their livelihood or their life is in danger. And perhaps with some of the conspiracy theory stuff, an out is to agree to be repackaged. That's one possibility. The
Mikey, I
other,
have a question for you
sure.
right there, because you said something that's critical. Here's my question, and it's what you just man. Did you say something? Here's the question: why do you think that historically it's the musicians of the entertainment field? Why is it the musicians, the singers, songwriters, performers, even performance artists? Why is it them that seem to be the biggest mortality group? I have my theories, but I'm curious as to what you think.
Well, if we're going to go along with they're victims of conspiracy or government interference with their lives, it would be because the musicians are the most influential on the youth. So if you're a government or an authoritative figure that's trying to control the people, you control the teenagers, you control the young 20 somethings, you control the preteens and the children, because they're the ones that are going to grow up. And they're if you can make them lack resistance or lack uh, retaliation or lack protest, then you're winning. And so you go for the Kurt Cobains or the Jim Morrisons or
Thousand percent,
the
a
Amy
thousand
Whitehouse.
percent.
The other thing, and I was doing some thinking about this. Let's take the government thing out of it for a second and just say, why are musicians oftentimes dealing with drugs or alcohol or sexual relationships that are not healthy or
Yeah.
violent or whatever? And I would say it's just the nature of the creative mind is always walking a tightrope between genius and disaster.
Oh
And
boy.
you can go back to who was the guy that cut his ear off supposedly and sent it to the woman.
Oh,
uh,
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh, right? You can go back to
Yeah.
Van Gogh. You can go back to the great poets. And basically they're walking a line between absolute genius. You can say tapping into a higher energy, tapping into God's energy if you want, or just
Right.
tapping into their own energy and fully and full creative expression. And then the flip side of that is and I've gone through this, is feeling that you can't control it, feeling that you want to write a novel in a week, or you want to write 1,000 words in 5 minutes, and
Right.
you have so much a rush of ideas that you can't control these ideas. You can't.
Yeah.
The muse becomes bigger than the artist, and then you magnify that with public adulation, women and or men throwing themselves at you sexually, money. A big misconception of the music industry for a long time is that if you have a song on the radio, you're an instant millionaire. Well, that's not true. A
Oh
lot of
boy.
these, and I know you've covered this, Angelo, that a lot
Oh
of
man.
artists,
Yeah.
are perpetually in debt to their because these
Music
contracts,
companies,
right? The music
especially if they sign a 360 deal, Mike.
Yeah, the music companies are one little example is that the musician is often not realizing when they sign this contract they're paying for the recording time in the studio. So
Yeah.
the musician is often getting screwed.
And it's
And
not cheap, Mikey.
no, And with the advent of the internet and YouTube and artists like Taylor Swift, who's very self empowered and so forth, and sets an example for others, some musicians are kind of wising up and realizing they have to be really careful with those contracts they sign. They have to really look out for themselves. But in the 1960s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, some of these musicians are just walking that thin line between absolute catastrophe equaling death and being very successful. I'm even wearing a T-shirt today, ACDC, which is one of probably my favorite band, and they had a
Yeah.
singer. They had a singer named Bon Scott who passed away in the
Oh,
backseat of
sure.
his car
Absolutely.
from drinking. And
Yeah.
the other thing I wanted to say, Angelo, is earlier you're talking about there was a pack of musicians from a certain era that were all said to have died from heroin, which was
Yeah.
the late 60s era. Well, in fast forward a generation or two, I believe Michael Hutchins from In Excess,
Yeah.
Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, and I think there was one or two others, were all supposedly dying from hanging themselves, which is a
Yeah.
very graphic way to die. And to be honest, Angelo, I never bought the Chris Cornell one because the guy had just done a concert the night before. He was with Soundgarden and Audio Slave. He was the singer. He was this guy that women especially loved this guy because he had a very sleek look, very good looking guy. Chris Cornell had a great voice. He was grounded. He was from Seattle, but he seemed to be he struggled with depression apparently, but I just don't believe he committed suicide, and I really don't believe he committed
Yeah.
suicide
I,
by choking himself out. And Michael Hutchins
yeah.
from NXS, same thing. Very dashing, good-looking guy, dated models throughout the 80s and
Yeah.
90s, and they're trying to say that he committed suicide by hanging himself. It just doesn't seem right. I don't have evidence, so to speak, but it doesn't seem like it matches up.
Well, when something feels off, Mikey.
Yeah.
You know in your gut when something feels off. Michael Hutchins is an interesting case, a really interesting case, because he had everything. And at the time of his passing, things could not have gone any better for him. He was like riding the crest. Things were moving for this guy, and then all of a sudden he hangs himself.
Right.
Really?
Right.
I don't think so. Something sounded off then. Something is still off about that. I don't know what it was, what it is, but it's just there's something there, and it sounds to me like a vengeance killing. It sounds to me like somebody getting even.
Right.
Especially when when you talk to the guy's wife, and he would never do that. He would never hang himself, and yeah, this woman, she should know.
Right.
She's married to him, right? They got a kid together.
Yeah.
I would think the spouse would know better than anybody else.
Right.
So I'm going with the spouse. I don't think he would have hung himself.
No, I don't think so.
Sounds like it sounds to me like a convenient way of saying, well, he was depressed and blah blah blah. Okay, well, we all get depressed, but we don't all hang ourselves. Okay,
Yeah.
Crazy. Especially when your life is like you just signed a new contract. They just gave you a huge advance. Now you're finally able to make a little bit of money.
Right.
Okay, the record company, they got what they now you go, okay, I could put a little bit more in my pocket now. A little bit more from my family. I could pay for my kids' college and shit.
Yeah.
Then he kills himself? Really?
It seems
it doesn't sound right, man.
Yeah, it seems like if we were to go with once again the conspiratorial government or authoritative figure wiping some of these people out, it seems like some of the deaths even are positioned in embarrassing ways. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, Angelo, Michael Hutchins in particular was said to be self-pleasuring himself and hanging himself at the same time. I believe that's the story that I heard once upon a time.
That was the same story, Mikey, and it's funny you say that because I was just today reading about David Carradine, and
Okay.
his death the same way. Autoerotica, asphyxiation,
Right.
pleasuring yourself while you were, and basically he died pleasuring himself hanging from a door.
Right.
But if you believe the story, Robin Williams died from hanging from a door. Um, and we know now that's not true. We know that he did commit suicide, but he didn't do it the way people thought.
Right.
He killed himself because his brain was literally shrinking, and he wasn't the same Robin Williams. And his wife just did a big interview with oh god, who did she do? It was with Savannah Guthrie, in fact.
Okay.
And you want to watch that? It's a really compelling interview. We want to do two more, but there's one in between these two. That's a
All
real
right.
short one. Mama Cass Elliott. What do you know about her? About
Well,
her close to death?
I know the infamous ham sandwich story,
Yeah,
and
there you go.
so
Yeah.
once again, that could be the story that was released as a humiliation tactic. Like, let's turn this person's death into a joke. That way, people won't question it. But what more should I know about her death, Angelo?
All right. We're going to put the kibosh on that because there was a long running rumor claimed that she choked to death on a ham sandwich. This became widely a tabloid story because she had a ham sandwich that had a couple of bites missing from it next to her on her tray. She was in a hotel room at the time.
Right.
They were on tour, and the Mamas and the Papas, and she was apparently in her room eating. You have to remember something. She had medical problems, folks. She was a short woman, only 5'1", but she weighed over 300 pounds. She was a big girl. She had serious heart issues. She died from cardiac arrest at the age of 32. She had a history of extreme dieting, weight fluctuations that were all over the scale, and that took a real strain on her heart. She died from cardiac arrest. Tabloid culture in the 1970s was brutal to her, and her weight was constantly used as the narrative. It was only partially responsible. She had a history, as we said, of extreme diet and weight loss, gaining weight, losing weight. If you watched Mama Cass and the Mamas and the Papas, you never knew what Mama Cass you were going to get. Were you going to get the thinner, the slimmed down version, or the portly Mama Cass like we were
Right.
used to seeing? Mikey, we got two more, and I
Okay.
saved the two best for last.
Good.
Prince was found unresponsive in his Paisley Park estate in Minnesota on April 21st, 2016, at the age of 57, and apparently died from an accidental overdose of fentanyl. Despite the fact the toxicology revealed no levels of opioids in his system.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, let's start with that one, Mikey.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you know about? Let's talk about Prince. Because I like Prince. I was a big Prince fan.
Yeah, I grew up with listening to Prince's music and the movie Purple Rain, and even now, Angelo, the last couple of years, I go to movies all the time. They re-released
Oh yeah.
Purple Rain and his concert movie back on the big screen, and this guy, so much energy and just a musical guru, and a fine chooser of women. Let's put it that way. I mean, all the women that he was involved with, both professionally and personally, were gorgeous. And so Prince was really a fantastic performer. And I didn't know too much about his death being controversial, except that he was well known in the 90s and the 2000s for fighting the music industry. he really saw into the future, the troubles with, internet and music and how that would work and the changing. And he was really an advocate for musicians taking control of their own careers. He sacrificed his own name, Prince. He was going by the symbol. The artist formerly known as Prince became a
Yeah.
punchline for a while. But he was willing to go to fight for artists' rights and for his rights as an artist. And when a lot of people wouldn't, and so the music industry, or musicians more to say, owe a debt of thanks to Prince, living and or dead.
And therein is the reason that he was taken out. That's why he was taken out. I believe absolutely what you just stated was the not only part and parcel of the reason, but I believe it was the entire reason. Prince was, especially in the last 3, 4 years of his life, was extremely outspoken about artist rights, the ability of artists to keep more of their own money. You got to remember something, and people watching this need to understand that there's something in the music business that almost every artist will sign. It's called a 360 deal. Okay? What a 360 deal does is it gives the record company and the studio power over your name, likeness, some of your music, some of your writing. It gives them writing credits for music that they didn't write. And people will gladly sign that contract. Why? Because it gets you on the label.
Right.
Okay, that's why young rappers are like dying poor. They're dying poor, Mikey, because they're not getting what they thought they were getting. I
Yeah.
just signed me a $4 million contract. Yeah, you just gave $4 million to your record company, you dumb fuck.
Right.
You just signed your career away. That don't ever sign a 360. You guys watching, don't sign a 360. If you're contact me and I'll set you in the right direction. I got a guy here in Jersey, he's really good. Here's the thing, Mikey. He was empowering not only the artist, but the prospective artist. He was giving knowledge to young performers. Here's what to do. Here's what not to do. Okay? He was telling them before you get into this. Let me give you some knowledge. Let me smarten you up, as they say in the wrestling business. He was smartening people up to the way it really is in the music business. And people like Tommy Mottola, the former president of Sony Records, who Michael Jackson called out on national TV, called him the devil
Right.
on national TV. Okay? When you got a guy that's calling out Clive Davis, who just died like days ago, and Prince was not a fan of Clive Davis at all. At all. Because Clive Davis was one of these guys who made his money on the backs of artists.
Right.
Yes, he discovered a lot of artists. True. He discovered Whitney Houston. He discovered a number of people. I forget, there's a list this long. But he also made a shit ton of money off of these people. Here's what I have a problem with. They say that his that he had no opioids in his system. However, his toxicity level was elevated because they found in his system, and they're calling it, I'm going to call it exactly what's written here, counterfeit Vicodin pills laced with the drug while managing chronic pain. Understand something, if you know anything about Prince. He was a nutritionist. He was a natural health guy.
Right.
He was a natural food guy. He was a vegetarian. He did not eat meat. He didn't put any crap into his body. I have a real hard time even swallowing, no pun intended, every pun intended, actually. I
Yeah.
have a problem swallowing the fact that they're saying that he ingested counterfeit Vicodin. Well, first of all, what the fuck is counterfeit Vicodin? Never heard of it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is a guy who's known to his family and fans as a health guy. Really? That's how you're going to take him out? And I think they did that for a reason, to let you know that he was taken out.
Hmm.
You do the one thing to this person that they would never do to themselves. He would never put that shit in his body.
Right.
So how do you kill him? By poisoning him with this crap. It's I don't know, Mikey. What do you think?
Well, I think it's once again, you know, controversial in life, controversial in death, and Prince seemed to be a guy, like you said, he seemed to have a lot to live for. If nothing else, art and music. But I think he was married when he passed away, and I think he seemed to be a guy who enjoyed life. Let's put it that way. And
Yeah.
it's hard to wrap our minds around as far as the pain goes. What exactly was he in pain from? I mean, the guy was not.
Well,
He was
that's the question. That's an outstanding question. Here's the thing. No evidence suggested that intentional suicide was the goal.
right.
Investigators filed no criminal charges against any pill suppliers, though questions still remain about how the counterfeit Vicodin, quote, reached him. I will tell you what I know factually. The night before he died, Prince had a meeting with Jay-Z and Will Smith.
Okay.
That's on record. That's factual. That's documented. They met. They were going to form a brand new African American run entertainment studio, of which Jay-Z, Prince, and Will Smith were all going to put up a third.
All right.
Okay. The other third was going to be put up by the unnamed investors.
Okay.
We assume that they're nice people. Okay. Is it possible? Is it possible that he got the pills from one of them? Is possible.
Sure.
Likely. I don't know how likely, but is it? Look, is it in the realm of possibility?
Sure. Anything's possible. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the point. Anything's possible. But until someone comes forward to say, I know how he died, Prince's death is going to be another one of those. That how did he really meet his demise?
Right.
The death of our, and I saved the best for last, Mikey.
Okay.
Janis Joplin.
Okay. Okay.
Because this one is steeped in mystery.
Right.
Janis Joplin, Mikey, you're a fan of hers? You know her music at all?
I was once rumored to be a masked pro wrestler for a short period of time, and that particular character of I swear to God I wasn't him, but his name was Smudge Baby in the ring, and he would come to the ring to Janis Joplin and the Holding Company's "Little Piece of My Heart" songs. So that's how I know about Janis, and
Okay.
Janis was kind of the original Earth Goddess, Mama, just a soul bending spirit of singing, and just a voice that was gritty and melodic at the same time, and but
Absolutely.
as far as her demise or her death, I'm really not aware too much of controversy about it, but I know she's in that 27 club. I think it's
She
Jamie
sure is.
Janice, Jimmy, and Jim Morrison are the original three in that sad group. But
Yeah.
tell me about the Janis Joplin controversy.
Janis Joplin died of an accidental heroin.
There you go again.
Another one. An
Yeah,
accidental heroin overdose on October 4th, 1970, at the age of 27,
right.
in her room at the Landmark Motor Motel in Los Angeles. Autopsy found no heroin in her system.
Right.
You can't
Right.
make this shit up.
Yeah.
You can't. You just can't make this up. She was found on the floor after missing a recording session with alcohol also in her system. Okay. The coroner ruled it accidental, possibly, and I love this part, possibly from a particularly potent batch of heroin that caused her overdoses that weekend. Some accounts note that she had bought cigarettes after injecting and returned to her room. While she was there, involved in a heavy drug and alcohol fueled rage. And this, I got to stop right here for a minute. Okay, understand something here. And we're talking about a woman at the time of her death. Let's just clear the air, because a lot of this is just, I want to go crazy. Janis Joplin, at the time of her death, was clean and sober. And there's physical video proof of that. Thankfully, in the form of a show that she did with Dick Cavett, who is still alive today. Janis Joplin, again, very outspoken on social issues, very popular. Mikey nailed it. Her voice was both gritty and melodic simultaneously. I loved Janis then, and I love her now. I listen to her music every day, and I do listen to it every day. She's one of a big part of my Spotify playlist is Janis and people like that back in the day. The coroner ruled it accidental. Okay, first of all, when somebody's involved in a quote drug fueled rant, and I love how did I know she was ranting? Okay,
Right.
a drug fueled rant. How does that happen when there's virtually nothing in her system? They said there was alcohol in her. If you figured out the amount of alcohol in her system, it would probably be maybe a shot or two of whiskey.
Right.
Is what it was, ounces, literally ounces, Mikey. Not like a half a gallon of vodka or, Jim Beam or whatever. We're talking maybe enough for her to get like a little buzz, but that's it. But when you talk about a drug and alcohol fueled rant, I don't buy that, especially when you consider she was being mentored and tutored to be clean. She had a sponsor with her all the time. On this particular day, she didn't. Why? She had a recording session. Sponsor was not allowed into the studio. They never are. Only authorized personnel. So Janis does this recording session. She goes to her hotel knowing that she had one the next day. She allegedly overdoses, passes away, misses the recording session the next day. Then they come looking for her.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you come looking for her the night before when you made the call to say your session starts at like 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. or 10 a.m.? You got to be at the studio at this time and studio number, blah, blah, blah. Because you don't know that stuff until they call you. That's
Right.
like going in for surgery. You don't know what time the doctor's going to operate on you until they call you the night before. Why? Because you don't know what time the doctor's going to get there.
Yeah.
That's why. I always had a problem with the death of Janis Joplin for a lot of reasons, Mikey, especially the fact that she did this interview with such thought and clarity and a sense of purpose. She knew what she offered. She knew what she could bring to the table.
Right.
She talked about looking forward to going to her high school reunion. Dick Cavett says to her, "Are you going to go?" She goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to show them all."
Yeah.
She goes, "I'm looking forward to this," because apparently she was bullied quite a bit as being the fat, ugly kid
Hmm.
in school. And she, let's be honest about it. She wasn't, a raving beauty. Her beauty, that what made her beautiful was her voice.
Sure.
Because when she opened her mouth, you forgot about how she looked.
Right. Right.
You know.
Well,
You see?
it's yeah.
And so, yeah, go ahead, Mike, because
Well,
that's where we're going to close on that one.
it's sad, and the way that you feel about Janice is in somewhat of the way I felt about the Chris Cornell suicide by hanging. It's just some of these things just don't feel right, and it's granted we're fans from a distance, whether it's a close distance or a very far distance. But even when the families speak out and the families say this doesn't match up, or their mind was not in a suicidal place, um, I just my own personal slant on suicide is that it's such a thing where people really have to be super depressed, and they really have to be bleak in order to pull it off. And it just seems in some of these circumstances that we've talked about, the people weren't there, and even the heavy drug use, like with the Prince story, it seems
Yeah.
like it doesn't seem like he was a guy that was ever going there. If anything was going to kill Prince, it would have been losing his name, losing his professional name of Prince, or being mocked by even his fans for the symbol, and if that was going to drive him over the edge, it would have, and it didn't. And here he was, 10, 15 years removed from the height of that stuff, and that's when he dies. And um, these we didn't even talk about the OG story on this, but you and I have talked about it before with some experts. The Paul McCartney, Paul is dead, but that's a
Yeah.
whole other rabbit trail that we've covered before. But this stuff is fascinating. It's sad in a lot of ways. It's tragic, and it's also very highly interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah, it sure the hell is. Let me do this real quick, folks. Take a look at this. I got something to sell you.
88.7 WTBR Radio.
There you go.
Laugh.
There you go. Cups are available, shirts are available. Just let me know. Hit me up and go to our where here we go. Hot damn, here you go. Here it goes. Go to WTBRradio.podbean.com. Check our merch link. Check all of our links while you're there. Check our more than oh man, we got 1,300 audio episodes.
Wow.
We've got more than 3,000 video episodes between Odyssey and YouTube. That's a fact, folks. 3,064 to be exact.
Wow.
1,311 audio episodes. More than 1 million downloads. That's a fact. Mikey, we just hit 1,074 downloads.
Congratulations. That's great.
Actually 1 week ago today, we hit 1,074 downloads.
That's awesome.
Very proud of that. We also have been nominated for a Webby Award in
Nice.
the category of Best Variety Podcast.
Very cool.
And we are, thank you, Jimmy Thunder from Down Under, for giving us the heads up. We are #1 in New Zealand again.
Nice.
And I love it. I don't know why New Zealand, Mikey. I just don't get it.
I don't
get it. New Zealand, of all places, right?
We should learn some New Zealand expressions to give a special shout out to the people.
I know, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
They don't say tally ho. That's somewhere else. But we'll find some New
Right?
Zealand expressions to say.
Oh man, I tell you what. Tomorrow night, Mikey and I will be discussing the death of television, death by streaming. Mikey, this is going to be an interesting show. It's going to be just me and Mikey, and when Mikey's not here, it's just me, folks. And so, get used to the changing face of What's the Buzz podcast. We are in transition. I have eliminated certain personalities from this podcast that are bringing us down and doing us bad. So we're going to stick with people that we like and like us, and that are honest and truthful and straightforward. And Mikey Messier fits all them bills.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun to be back.
Brother, I'm going to tell you something. If it's just you and me, I don't care about anything else. I like having conversations with people I can have conversations with.
Yeah, I understand.
And I'm loyal. I don't forget the people who helped me.
Right.
And I just want to tell people this right now. When Mikey Messier is on the road and he pulls over into a flop house motel, sets up his computer and does a live podcast with me, I'm indebted to that guy. Okay? I'm indebted to that guy.
I remember that.
Forget.
That was the first one with you and Jeff, and
yeah,
I was in South Carolina, which I lovingly called.
That's right. You were in the Carolinas. That's right. Driving through.
I called South Carolina the Massachusetts of the South.
Right.
Which I don't know.
Mikey, promote yourself. What you got coming up?
Well, I was just listening to on Hoopla the audiobook version of Fighter Play Basketball by Mike Messier.
Yes.
We're going to do a special episode on that in a few weeks.
Yep.
But the hardcover, the paperback that I have in my hand is very affordable. And I did the cover art, and the photograph
beautiful.
Is a model.
I have the original, I think, with the other cover, right?
Yeah, I think you do, which would
I sure do.
Item. So
Avalonia Film Festival, ladies and gentlemen, avaloniafest.com.
Yeah, avaloniafestival.com and
Avalonia Festival. I'm sorry, festival.
That's okay. And it's for short films, etc. And MikeMessier.com. If all this stuff is too much, just go to MikeMessier.com, and there's links and everything from there.
And if you need to reach Mikey, he can be reached at Mikey Messier Movie Maker, right?
Mike Messier Movie Maker at gmail.com.
At Gmail. Okay. I didn't want to give the wrong at. I was Yahoo or Gmail.
No, thank you.
At Gmail. Okay. So if somebody wants to send you like a film script, that's where you get it.
You reach out to me, Mike Messier Movie Maker at gmail.com, or just through MikeMessier.com. I'll get it.
Terrific. Mikey will be here tomorrow night. Again, we're going to talk about that. That's going to be an interesting subject matter tomorrow night. Let's just kind of give them a little preview because we got a couple minutes left here, Mikey.
Sure.
So is conventional television like dead? Is it dead, or do you think it's like on life support?
I think it's on life support, but I think there's some things, like, for instance, one thing that might be a real sign of the death toll, it would be if the Super Bowl ever fully leaves broadcast television. Like right now, it's typically on Fox or CBS. Yeah. The world, like even this past year, if you're a sports fan of the playoffs, like I am, we get to the NHL and the NBA playoffs, and the finals were both on ABC, over the air, old school. So if you have a Hulu package, or you have a package where you can get ABC, but also I have what's called an HD antenna, HD TV antenna,
Yeah.
which is like 30 or $40, and you basically hook it up like an old school antenna to the back of your TV, and you can get like 70 or 100 stations from there.
It's
And
remarkable, ain't it, Mikey?
yeah, it's
The
cool. I like high
technology is
def TV.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you and I can remember the black and white TV era and stuff like that. So I mean,
Oh, I sure the hell can. Remember them rabbit ears that used to?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like I'm telling you, like I think you can see it behind me.
Yeah,
That's
I sure
an
do.
antenna right there for my HD TV that's in my window,
Yeah.
and I can get really good reception on HD TV to watch the Super Bowl or the NHL or the NBA, or even on the TV would be like the soccer games. You can get them on Fox. So
Yep.
my point is,
Mike-
I don't think it's dead, but things like streaming, where you have like the Taylor Sheridan shows and on Paramount
Yeah.
Plus, and Netflix has so many series, and the birth of the series. I've rewritten my A Distance from Avalon film script into a series script this year,
Mhm.
because the streaming series is king now as far as entertainment. People want that opportunity to binge watch a series, and I was very resistant to that, Angelo, for many years. I was like, I'm not going to sign up for Netflix. I'm not going to do this, and now I'm doing it like everybody else. So
Yeah.
it's interesting
Exactly.
stuff. It's interesting, and it's kind of
Yeah.
fun. I missed the whole Office phenomenon, in the 2005 era, when The Office was the number one show on TV for comedies. I wasn't
Yeah.
watching it, but during the pandemic, I got hooked on The Office, and now I love it, and because of binge
Yeah.
watching. So it's interesting stuff.
Well, it sure is, because I'm going to be part of that streaming in 2027. We're going on Tubi.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
thank you,
huge.
thank you so much. We
Big.
they it's funny how things work out. I've been offered shows by A&E, Discovery Channel, and I turned them down because they want who you are and what you do. But as soon as you sign the contract, they want to change everything about
Right.
you. So I said, no, I don't think. If you want me, this is what you get. One size fits all.
Right.
And Tubi said, yeah, we'll go with that. Okay.
That's cool.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Mikey, thank you for being with us.
HappyToBeHere.
MikeandMessier.com is where you can reach all things Mike Messier. And I will tell you, folks, that we will be back, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Like Papa DeCipio always says, tomorrow's promised to no one. So make today count, folks. Be good to each other. We'll see you tomorrow night, Lord willing. Take care. Bye-bye.